Hello, I'm Simon Whistler, you're watching TopTenzNet, and in the video today we're looking at the top 10 insanely dedicated people.
Number 10. Man reads entire unabridged dictionary. We're guessing that the idea of reading the entire dictionary isn't one that seems all that impressive to many people reading this. Half of you probably spent a sizable chunk of your pre-adolescent years looking up curse words in one. But here's the thing, the dictionaries you get in schools or can buy from stores are merely abridged versions of the real thing. The version you know contains the most relevant words for that particular year. This is why newer versions of the dictionary contain words like YOLO or swag, but not more archaic words like sabratac, vacordius, or grammatilatory. Words like that simply aren't common enough in today's lexicon to be worth noting, even if they're still considered real words. So how big is the actual dictionary? Well, at last count it was over 22,000 pages and 6 million words long. And astoundingly, a man named Michael Cera read all of it. The feat, which took over a year, saw Cera reading the equivalent of a full-length novel every single day and nearly cost him his sanity. According to him, the sheer amount of new words he was confronted with while reading the dictionary made him question if he actually spoke English. It had him, in his own words, near catatonic towards the end. When asked his opinions on the mammoth tome, Cera answered succinctly, "It's a good read." Talk about an understatement. Number 9. Man sends a box of porn to Congress for 30 years. The word hero is thrown around a lot. We think everyone can agree that it probably rather aptly describes Larry Flynt, a porn mogul who has sent a copy of Hustler magazine to every member of Congress once a month every month for the last 30 years. According to Flynt, he started doing this in the 80s out of a deep desire to keep congressmen informed about social trends. This was apparently still a time when people insisted they read porno for the articles. As you can imagine, some of the more conservative congressmen weren't exactly happy with a giant box of porn arriving in their office every month. They tried to take Flynt to court to make him stop, only to be told by a judge that it's Flynt's prerogative under the First Amendment to send them as much porn as he wants. Specifically, they said that the monthly delivery isn't enough to be considered a nuisance. A judge wryly shut down more vocal congressmen by saying, "We cannot imagine that congressional officers all lack wastebaskets." Speaking of which, according to anonymous sources, most of the time the magazines ended up being thrown straight in the trash or being sent overseas to soldiers serving in Iraq, but some ended up being collected in a big special porn cabinet in Congress so that they can all be thrown away later. According to those same anonymous sources, the big porn cabinet is always mysteriously a few hustlers short when they eventually do empty it. Your tax dollars at work, folks. Number 8. Guy spends 10 years making an alphabet out of rocks. Andre Quirinus Zabriggan is a man who loves him some rocks. In particular, he's fascinated by the idea of rocks with natural markings that make it look like they're man-made. Which is, well, weird, but then again, everyone needs a hobby. Zabriggan is especially interested in rocks with markings that make them look like letters. Around a decade ago, he found a rock with a marking on it that looked like an A while walking around the Swiss Alps. Right then and there, Zabriggan decided to dedicate the next 10 years of his life creating a rock alphabet, a goal he very recently accomplished. To share his collection with the world, which features all 26 letters in both upper and lower case, as well as numbers and punctuation, Zabriggan scanned them all and turned them into a font so you can write anything you want using million-year-old letters formed by the power of nature that took a guy 10 years of his life to find. We can only imagine how annoyed Zabriggan was when he found that 90% of people using his website are only using it to write the word penis over and over again. Number 7. Man spends depressing percentage of his life hunting NESSIE. It's not going to surprise you that there are people out there who've spent a substantial amount of their life hunting down Bigfoot and scouring the land for Yeti turds, because we all know there are people like that out there. The thing is, those people tend to be their very own specific brand of crazy, usually falling in with other like-minded people, so their fruitless search for a creature all science says doesn't exist isn't that depressing. Which brings us to Steve Feltman, a man who spent 24 years hunting the Loch Ness Monster only to come to the conclusion that it probably doesn't exist. This in itself would be pretty sad, but it gets worse, because along with sacrificing nearly a quarter of a century, Feltham sold his house, gave up his job, broke up with his girlfriend, and then spent all his life savings funding research missions to find Nessie. Feltham would literally have been better off spending 20 years of his life slowly throwing money into a fire, because at least then he'd still be having sex with his girlfriend in his house while also being 4 years younger. Weirdly, Feltham insists that he doesn't regret the time he spent hunting the Loch Ness Monster, even though it left him homeless, penniless, and a total laughingstock in the eyes of both scientists and all those people who believe in Nessie. Which is impressive because that's a Venn diagram we can't imagine has a lot of overlap. Number 6. Woman creates mannequin family and lives with them for 14 years. We live in a world where traditional gender norms are slowly being phased out in favor of letting people adopt the Bart Simpson philosophy of doing what you feel like. This is no better demonstrated than by the growing trend of women who, for one reason or another, are consciously deciding they don't want kids, often to the annoyance of their families, who probably just want another potential kidney donor running around or something. Artist Suzanne Heinz is one such woman. She got sick of her mother insisting that she needed to settle down and start a family when she already had an awesome life that in no way could be improved by a bunch of screaming crotch spawn. One day, Suzanne snapped and simply bought herself a family in the form of a bunch of mannequins, intending to pose with them for a generic family photo that she was going to send to her family as a Christmas card in protest. Suzanne quickly realized, though, that this idea was simply too good to waste on one sarcastic joke. She decided to turn the entire thing into a sprawling art project, which spanned 14 years. During that time, Suzanne traveled the world with her perfect mannequin family, taking photos everywhere she went for a project that she's since dubbed Life Once Removed. Judging by her blog, which was last updated in December 2015, the project has either ended or Suzanne has decided to take some time off from art to raise her mannequin daughter, which makes total sense. She probably needs a break after dropping a mic that huge. Number 5. Man patrols cliffs every day to stop suicides, saves 500 lives. Because we're contractually obliged by the listicle gods who govern all of YouTube to include at least one feel-good entry, we're going to be serious for a moment. Still with us? Well, good. Okay, let's talk about a man who has saved around 500 lives due to his dedication to lowering Japan's abnormally high suicide rate. According to a profile in Japan Today, Yukio Shiga, a retired police officer and eternal champion of our hearts, has spent the last few years of his life patrolling the Tojinbo cliffs, talking people out of taking their own lives. After having a close friend end his life, Shige decided that he would personally seek out and punch suicide to death with words. Shige's dogged determination has earned him the sobriquet Choto Mate Man, which roughly translates to Hold On Wait Man, the words he uses to stop people from jumping. While we'll admit that Hold On Wait Man isn't exactly a great name for a hero, the power to stop people committing suicide with a few words is a pretty baller power. Shige's dedication is such that he will often keep in touch with a person long after he stops them from jumping. He offers whatever help he can, whether they need money, food, or just someone to ask how they're doing. Okay, and now we get back to making some silly jokes. Number 4. Lots of people wear the same outfit to work every day just to see who'd notice. As approximately 100% of women will tell you, there's a weird gender double standard when it comes to what you wear to work. While men can get away with wearing basically the same outfit every day, women will be subject to scrutiny or mockery for doing the same. But you don't have to take the word of literally every working woman on Earth for it. Just ask the men who wore exactly the same outfit to work every day for a year to highlight this absurd double standard. The most famous example of this is probably Australian TV presenter Carl Stefanovic, who wore the same blue suit every day for a year after noticing his female colleague got abusive messages and tweets when she similarly wore the same outfit 2 days in a row. In Stefanovic's own words, after the year-long experiment, no one has noticed, no one gives a crap. After hearing about this, a Canadian mayor named Richard Stewart tried the same thing, after noticing that, like Stefanovic, his female co-workers were often mocked or subject to horrific abuse for daring to wear the same outfit twice. Again, nobody noticed in the 15 months he walked into every meeting wearing the same boring dark blue suit. Both Stefanovic and Stewart had to tip their hats to Matilda Carl, though. This woman has worn the same conservative shirt, pants and blazer combo to work every day for the last 4 years in protest of the same ridiculous double standard. Carl's dedication is such that she refused to change even after she switched jobs from being an art director to a creative manager of Sony Music. Unsurprisingly, the comments on both articles about this decision are inevitably awful because they talk about a woman making her own decision, which the internet apparently hates. Number 3. Guy visits every country on Earth and has countless adventures. There are many people who claim to have traveled to every country on Earth and will admit that it takes a special kind of dedication to do something like that. But today we're here to talk only about Gunnar Garfors, because unlike all the other posers, he's traveled to every country on Earth as a hobby. Yep, Garforce has traveled to 198 countries in just over a decade, including totalitarian countries like North Korea and Eritrea as a hobby. What's more, Garfor only considers the trip to a country to be legitimate if he speaks to at least one native and comes back with a story to tell, setting him apart from members of those loser traveling clubs where they count layovers as visiting a country. During his decade-long globe-trotting adventure, Garforce has gone jogging alone in North Korea after getting his state-assigned tour guide drunk, watching porno at 8 a.m. in an African bar while eating breakfast, and having wedding photos taken with a South Korean girl he dated for a while. After visiting every country on Earth, Garforce wrote a book about his adventures, which features a picture of him dunking the Earth like a basketball on the cover. Because, well, of course it does. Number 2. Low-cost cosplay man is a national treasure. Cosplay is one of those weird hobbies where to be really good at it, you simultaneously need to have the kind of free time only someone without a job has, and the kind of money only someone with all of the jobs has. Anuka Sangchart didn't agree with that and started a Facebook page called Low-Cost Cosplay to show that you can dress up almost as anyone from fiction using things lying around your house, provided everyone who looks at you squints a bit. While running the page, Sangchart has cosplayed as characters from nearly every facet of fiction, from comics to commercials, and has accrued himself a well-earned 600,000 and counting likes on the website. What makes Sangchart's success so impressive, though, is that he only runs the page in his spare time. He spends most of his days looking after old people as part of his job as a care worker. This means that after a long day of being an inhumanly productive member of society, Sangchart comes home and throws flour at his face for 5 minutes to cosplay as Frieza from Dragon Ball Z, just to make people he's never met laugh. Say what you want, that takes commitment. Number 1. Man spends £1,000 visiting every Nando's in the UK for a competition, and then finds out the competition is over. Nando's is the place you take a girl on a first date if you don't want to spend a lot of money but also don't want to look cheap. It's a place that sells chicken but doesn't put it in buckets so you don't feel like a fat sack of crap. For a while, they had a rather curious offer. Essentially, at one point, the restaurant had a standing offer that anyone who ate a meal in every Nando's in the world would be given a special black card that lets you eat at Nando's for free, forever. Supposedly, several celebrities own such a card, and it's considered the holy grail for Nando's fans, who we're slowly growing to hate. In an effort to get the mythical black card, a man named Christopher Poole spent a year and £1,000 of his own money to eat at every Nando's in the UK, putting on £15 in the process. It was only after eating in literally every Nando's in the UK, though, that Poole bothered to check the rules of the competition, and he discovered that it had ended 2 years earlier. To their credit, in acknowledgement of the sheer amount of time Poole had wasted, Nando's did offer to honor the original promotion if he ate in the other 900 Nando's locations around the world. Upon hearing this, Poole was quoted as saying, "I'm more determined than ever to complete the challenge." Judging by the Facebook page Poole created to document his progress, which hasn't been updated since September 2015 and still says he's in the UK, we're assuming he's not doing that well.
So those sure were some crazy acts of dedication. If you like this video and were impressed by those, do click that thumbs up button below to let us know that you like it. Also, leave us a comment to let us know what you think in the comment section below. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and check out some of our other videos as well. They're linked to over there on the right. And thank you for watching.